Welcome, everybody, to today's episode of the Seven Figures Club podcast. And today, my friends, we've got an international flavor for you with international entrepreneur Ryan Margolin. He is CEO of Professional Hair Labs, and he set out on a journey to help create the world-leading product in cosmetic bonding when his mother was poisoned by harmful chemicals in the hair adhesive products commonly used in the industry. And inspired to keep the same thing from happening to anybody else, his family dove into the research and created their first hair care product free of harmful substances. Now, fast forward 20 years later, and Ryan is an international business leader and entrepreneur who works in more than 15 different countries. There, he helps create sustainable services and products in industries full of subpar and even harmful options. With the help of Ryan's expertise in effectively taking concepts and formulating strategies for success in multiple different industries, as well as his flexibility, clarity, and dedication to putting people first, Professional Hair Labs has expanded its manufacturing tenfold and grown to become one of the 500 fastest growing companies in the U.S. over the last 5 years. And it's sold more than $50 million in product globally. Guys, if you want to become an international entrepreneur and learn how to globally grow your brand, you're going to want to take some notes today. Ryan, welcome to the show.
There are over 32 million businesses in the U.S., and over 90% of them will never break seven figures in annual sales. So how do we as entrepreneurs or aspiring entrepreneurs break into that seven figures club? This podcast will relentlessly share the secrets, strategies, and tactics I've used to create 3 multi-seven figures businesses and bring in even more successful entrepreneurs than me to share their inspirational stories and tactics to success. You can create your dream business and life right now. So buckle up and let's go.
Thanks very much for having me, Leo.
All righty. Well, we usually like to start these episodes off with hearing a little bit more about your background and upbringing. And what was it about maybe some events in childhood that kind of led you down a path of, going for independence, entrepreneurship, and what was that path like for you?
Well, I think for me personally, it was just learned behavior. I've always, said since I was a little kid that, when I was older, I wanted to work for myself. I didn't know what that looked like or what that even meant at the time, but I knew ultimately I wanted to be kind of in control of my own path. And having parents that were, both business owners as well, that's the environment that I grew up in. So really that's what my focus always was. And naturally over the years, I've had different jobs, as an employee and stuff. And it's helped me refine my skills and my knowledge. But really, when I kind of opened my cape and let my wings fly, that's really where I started to be able to, to make the mistakes that were required to improve.
Outstanding. So what was, when did you first, go out and do something entrepreneurial, really launch your own business, work for yourself? What was that first event like?
So back in 2009, when the big crash happened, it was kind of a time where I was working in an industry that, was heavily hit by the crash. So I had an opportunity at that point to really reassess where I was at and what I wanted to do. So I was looking at some, different options in different industries and different niches. And at that time, my father had, this company and he was having some challenges. So we had some in-depth discussions about, what it might look like for me to come over and, take a look at the company and see, how it functioned and what we could do really to improve it. He wasn't happy with the direction basically that it was going and that it was sitting in. So after some careful thought, I kind of decided to pack it all in, and I moved from Ireland to Florida for a period of time with my wife and my daughter, and spent the first few months just learning about the business. I had always grown up in the hair replacement. My mother and father did as a business, but what it turned into was when my mother got chemical poisoning, my dad sold a hair replacement business, and he focused his attention to creating a safe product line for technicians and hair wearers. So that's really where it all started. And this was over 25 years ago. So in 2009, when I decided to take the jump and myself and my wife moved to Florida, We focused in for a few months. We learned a bit about the business. We saw what I believe was wrong at the time. And we made some really fundamental changes. Nothing too complicated, nothing simple, or nothing overly complex. And we stripped the whole company back, rebuilt the brand, rebuilt the image, the message. And we just did some really simple direct mail marketing campaigns, and we tripled revenue in 18 months. So that kind of led us to know that, look, we have a product here that we've now validated in the industry. It has international scope. So in 2011, we decided we were going to take the jump and, move into Europe. And so we opened a facility in Europe. I moved back to Ireland, and the company kind of just snowballed from there. So my journey into entrepreneurship kind of started there. Since then, there's been other businesses and other, services that I've offered myself, but ultimately where my core, mission and focus lies is within professional hair labs. So it's where we've been able to make the most impact and change the most lives.
Beautiful. Thank you for sharing that, Ryan. One thing I want to unpack for the audience, we have, small business owners, entrepreneurs, startups listening to this. And you're basically sharing that in the height of the Great Recession of 08-09, things are difficult. And yet within 18 months, you were able to triple sales and triple revenues. What was the process of assessing where the company was at and discovering the problems? And for our listeners, how can they sort of take a step back outside of their business and really take a look at and find problems? How did you assess and find the issues? And how can kind of entrepreneurs and business owners listening maybe take a step back and do the same to identify the problems and then more importantly, diagnose, hey, here's the potential solutions?
Yeah, so the product line was created with the aim of solving a problem, which was, safe and effective hair adhesives for individuals who experience hair loss. So they wear wigs or hair pieces. So we knew that the market was there. How we assessed that was, and look, I suppose as a business owner, it really depends on how dirty you really want to get your hands, and how much work you want to actually do and how much you want to outsource. Now, at the time, fortunately for me, I had all the time in the world to really get stuck in. So I took 3 months and I manually scraped the internet, and I built a database on an Excel sheet of every single hair replacement studio in the United States. So when all was said and done and we validated the addresses, we had about, I think it was about 5,000 addresses to contact. Now, naturally, you don't want to cold call. You'd be on the phone for a long time. We didn't have the resources to do it. So we felt that the easiest way to do that was to create a direct mail, campaign. So we did a simple postcard, 2 sides. We figured, look, we don't want to, business owners are busy. We don't want to inundate them with a bunch of information. So let's keep this really simple. First side was a design about the product, what it is, and the benefits. Flip side was testimonials. And we sent them out in 3 different batches. And for the next, 3 to 4 months, we were flooded with calls every day, 50 plus calls a day. And everyone wanted to try this product. What turned into 1 bottle is a trial order, then turned into, the next order being 10 bottles, 25 bottles, 5 bottles. And before you know it, then, we were sitting in a position where, we had quadrupled almost our client base, and we tripled revenue from that. So it was a really big eye opener for us, because we realized that, growing a business sometimes doesn't have to be so complex. It's really the simple things that work best. And if you focus on what the simple solutions are, you'll get the most impact. I think, we as individuals and human beings, we tend to overcomplicate things. And ultimately, I think it stands in our way of growth.
Wow, that was such a powerful, breakdown of what you did. So you stepped in, you looked at what's going on, and then you said, well, where are our strategic partners, our clients, where are our dream customers? And you just put a list of them together. And then in today's world, where everybody assumes all marketing should take place online and social media marketing, the more effective route to actually connect with these, business owners who are going to be your clients, who, going to be buying your product and retailing it at their locations, was basically to send direct mail. How big of an opportunity do you think exists within a lot of industries that people are missing with just simple direct mail campaigns?
I think generally people, no, not everyone, but you often hear the thing, direct mail marketing is dead, old marketing is dead. I just don't buy it. I think there's room for all of it. So we had a very simple marketing strategy. Actually, up until about 3 or 4 years ago, we actually didn't spend a dime on online marketing at all, advertising whatsoever. We built a high 7-figure company with purely, just from direct mail marketing and organic marketing. We heavily invested in search engine optimization at the beginning when we were redeveloping the brand and the site, and that still stands to us till this day. Look, I think it's highly underrated, the power of direct mail campaigns still. Obviously, depending on the niche, but there's still scope for it. And I think, if you have a large database of validated customers, my question would be, why are you not at least, creating a couple of campaigns trying to offer further services that they either may not know you have, or new services that you have developed? Because I think there's much more business to be done within your current audience than there. Look, I mean, the cost of reselling to one of your current customers is a lot less than trying to acquire one now in this day and age. And I think if you really focus on that, you'll find that there is still scope there for direct mail marketing. 100%.
Well said, guys. And I love how you shared too, how you created that marketing postcard, right? Half of it was just the benefits, and then the other side was testimonials. And again, as humans, as business, we try to overcomplicate things with all the bells and whistles and features, but really, how is this going to help me? Benefits right there. And then on the other side, give me some social proof that it actually works, which you did, which I think that a lot of good takeaways from that, guys, when you're putting together marketing pieces, whether it's online, direct mail, whatever it may be. Now, then, as you guys are scaling and growing this here in the US, tripling revenues, then the next step, you guys make the decision, all right, we're going to jump from, now the US to Europe. So how in the world does a business go from selling products nationally in the US to selling them internationally? In this case, you expanded to Europe.
Yeah, so that was probably the biggest learning curve for me. So, we had tripled revenue in the States, and I was thinking to myself, I got this. We can do this, and it's all great. And I took the same principles and methodologies, and we opened in Europe, and I applied everything that I had learned over that 18 months, and crickets fell flat on my face. And it had me reassessing everything at that point. I was like, what am I not doing right? Or what are we not doing right? Like, what has to change? And I realized there was a huge shift here for me from a mindset perspective. I realized, culturally, business is just different in different places in the world. Yeah. And what I found is that the same approach that I was using in the United States when dealing with clients, even sometimes cold outreaching to people, it wasn't as responsive. People wanted to do business in a different way. So that actually took me about another 6 months on top of that to really figure that out. And then we started to get some response, and, relationships were built. And that allowed us to get, a few of the larger distributors on board, which then, expanded the brand recognition and the awareness. And ultimately that led to, us being able to penetrate markets that we hadn't ever, before. So everywhere, every new country that we target, we look at what do we potentially have to do to make sure that when we open these communications, that it's opened right. Because it's not just as simple as reaching out to somebody and just saying, hey, we've got this product here. We think it would benefit your company. There's a whole lot more to it. And I just think, each country brings its own set of challenges.
No question. So what were some of those pivots that you made and stark differences in being able to connect with clients in Europe versus the US? And how did you discover, what was actually going to work in connecting up with them?
Yeah. So one of the key things was, believe it or not, language was a huge barrier. While people do, while people throughout Europe, predominantly speak English, it's, if you're dealing with a lot of, old school members of the hair replacement industry, they like to communicate in their own language. So at that point I was like, okay, we kind of either have to do one of two things. We didn't have the resources to hire someone in Europe. We had already made a heavy investment. So I had to do all the heavy lifting myself. I just went and simply got a translation program and started communicating with people that way. We redeveloped, we had our marketing material all changed into different languages because I realized that, look, once we started sending this stuff out, there was no response because people weren't reading it because they either couldn't or didn't want to put in the effort. So we made it easier for them. We created a small little portal where they could click the link, get all the information. And we knew that there was a need for it. It's just we couldn't figure out how to make that connection. And when we started to make it easier for them, we started to open up further communications. And then eventually what would happen is through the different trade shows, we would have different translators that would come with us. And then for the really high level important communications we were having, we kind of pushed the communication in conjunction with our translator. So we made sure everything was perfect, and there was no broken language there.
Oh, I like that. I like that. So language is very important, communicating directly to them instead of, yes, everyone may speak English or they may speak some English, but you've got to get direct to them in their language, their culture. That makes a lot of sense. Now, as you start to grow your brand and you're starting to, make progress globally, inevitably, you start to run into issues with IP and with counterfeiting and intellectual property issues. What are some of the successful or steps that entrepreneurs need to be taking to protect their IP and to maintain their clients and deal with some of these issues with counterfeiting?
Yeah, so I mean, this is something I could talk about for days. We've been through so much, so many issues with IP and counterfeit. So obviously in the US, we had our trademarks and we had our copyright and we had all of that in place. But what we didn't account for was that our brand was going to be counterfeited coming out of China. And what happened was it was our most popular trademark was actually trademarked in China by somebody else, and we didn't realize it. So it had been approved, and they had used that approval to not only sell the products online, but to penetrate our distribution channels, which still has a huge impact on us. So protecting your brand by realizing that if you're going to trademark your brand, whether it's a service, a name, or a brand name, make sure that you're doing it. At the very least in the USA, get an EU trademark and get a Chinese trademark, because ultimately, if you have something that's worth copying, that's probably the country it's going to come from. So that was one of our biggest mistakes and we were able to overcome that. So we sent investigators on the ground to find this individual, which they did find them. And this individual ended up essentially blackmailing us to sell us back the trademark. But we used that evidence in trademark court, and they overturned the trademark and removed it from his possession because it was registered, under what they call unfaithful means. So he didn't have good intentions. So we've been able to since acquire that. And it's helped us, reduce the amount of counterfeits in the marketplace. But ultimately, as time goes on and you're focusing in more countries, you have to extend your trademark rights in different countries. I mean, to do it across the world is a huge expense. So you can't obviously naturally do that unless you're in a position where you're ready to heavily invest in multiple countries. But if you're just starting out, I think those 3 countries would be the perfect places to start.
Absolutely, guys. So to unpack that again, make sure you get your trademarks, everything set up IP-wise, intellectual property in the US, Europe, and of course, China, which is becoming a force, obviously, in the world of economics and for sure manufacturing as well. Now, as a family-run and owned business, there's entrepreneurs out there that are in a family-run business, or they're maybe even thinking of starting one. What are some of the factors that lead to success and challenges that you need to be aware of when you're trying to grow and scale a family-owned business?
Look, I think it comes down to to personalities, really. I mean, fortunately for us, I'm involved in the business with my 2 brothers. And look, we're empathetic human beings, so I mean that works very well for us. we always have the ability to put ourselves in each other's shoes in times where we might not be agreeing, or, there's certain things we're trying to navigate through. But really, I think, what's vitally important is no matter how well, you get on as individuals, as brothers or sisters or family members, it's always good to just have an operating agreement put in place. I think it protects the company, it protects everyone, because there's a clear set of rules that are in place and things that need to be adhered to, and it just saves any ambiguity or lack of clarity. So I think working in a family business, I would say that would be very integral to make sure that you have in place. It doesn't matter how big the business is. I mean, you can have an attorney draw up an operating agreement for a couple of $1,000. So but again, it's one of those things that keeps everyone in track with a clear mind, and everyone knows exactly where everything stands. So aside from that, I feel that I think working in a family business, it's vitally important to progress from a place of equality. Everyone brings something different to the table. In some situations, somebody might have a bigger strength than somebody else, but ultimately, if you're leading from a place of equality, I think it makes it much easier to get things done, because then there's, it removes all of the resistance there if somebody feels like somebody's getting more than the next. Look, there's always an imbalance in the company. There's always going to be points where one family member is doing more than the other, and it comes and goes. It's just the way it is. So I think just moving forward from a place of equality is another vitally important part of running a familia business.
Absolutely, guys. So keeping it equal, put together that operating agreement, have it in writing. Verbally is not enough, leads to confusion. Put it in writing. Very important. And then for a lot of our, physical product owners out there that are trying to grow and scale a business with a physical product, what are some of the factors to consider when you're looking at manufacturing that product in-house versus contracting out? Like, what should you be looking at, and how should that decision process work?
Yes, I've been on both sides of that, on that scale. Look, when the company first started and when I first got involved, we were contract manufacturing all of our products. I mean, they were our formulas. We developed them in conjunction with the chemists that we had on the team, but we were having other companies making it for us. So we've been through the whole mill of, ingredient changes without our knowledge, lack of consistency in the production. The differences in between batches, which is totally noticeable to, clients who have been using our products for years. So when you're working with a contract manufacturer, it's vitally important that you get clarity on, number one, what are their processes around manufacturing? Are they ISO GMP certified? Are they adhering to the standard common practices of a manufacturer, and what that entails? Especially if it's a cosmetic product like ours, you need to be brought up to date. Are there any ingredient changes that they need to make, either for compliance or whether they're trying to sub one for the other to get a production date moved ahead? By changing something as simple as a preservative could have detrimental effects to somebody's health, and if your label doesn't state that, you land yourself into a problem. So from a contract perspective, you just need to make sure that you're working with a very reputable and a very reliable manufacturer. Now, we brought everything in-house, and we now are the manufacturer of not only our own products, but we do custom formulas for tons of different companies all over the world. And as part of that, we've taken the pitfalls that we've learned over the years and we plugged those holes. So I think bringing it in-house, you get more control. That the product is made the same exact way every single time. We have our lab, like, for example, I'm standing right over our lab now, and I know that, today we have a bunch of testing going on with different products to make sure that the consistency is there, the challenge testing is there, stability testing is there, and no matter where in the world we send these products, it's going to hold up to the climate. So when a customer does receive them, there's never going to be any problems unless, obviously, it's stored maybe outside of the recommended conditions. So bringing it in-house gives you just a higher level of control, and I think ultimately it benefits the reputation of the brand, but it does come with a lot of extra costs involved because you need a specialized team to handle it. You need chemists, you need QC, you've got compliance, all of those things. So there is an added cost, but I think ultimately the brand benefits and the company benefits from that.
No question. Well, Ryan, we really appreciate you being a guest on the Seven Figures Club podcast today. A lot of value bombs that you have dropped on the audience. How can the audience connect from you, learn from you, and continue to take action towards following some of the secrets and strategies you've utilized to grow an international multi-seven-figure brand? Yeah, so look, we have social media channels, across, say, Facebook, LinkedIn, TikTok, Instagram, all the typical ones. My main hangout is usually on LinkedIn. So look, I mean, if anyone wants to reach out or connect, that would be the place to do so. I'm not really too active on the other platforms. But our website is prohairlabs.com. So look, I mean, from a product perspective, if there's anyone watching that is thinking about building a business or whatever, in the cosmetic space or beauty or hair, we're the company to connect with. But when it comes to everything else, like, knowledge and, sharing advice and stuff, look, just simply reach out on LinkedIn and I'd be more than happy to answer any questions. Beautiful. Well, guys, that's Pro Hair Labs. What a great website URL that is, Pro Hair Labs. Pretty easy, short to remember. So check out Pro Hair Labs. I know we do have a lot of beauty salon entrepreneurs on this podcast that we have helped also with funding. So make sure you guys and gals that are in the industry reach out at prohairlabs.com, and then it's Ryan Margolin. That's MARGOLIN on LinkedIn. One of the few Ryan Margolins out there. So you should be able to connect up with Ryan. And guys, LinkedIn, if you're not taking advantage of LinkedIn, it is one of the biggest opportunities, especially with, B2B business where you can connect. People are open, they're active. It's a content, mecca right now where you can produce great content on LinkedIn and get organic results without having to spend a fortune. So if you're not on LinkedIn dominating, please begin to jump onto that and connect with Ryan there. Ryan, thank you so much for being a guest on the podcast. And the final word is yours, Ryan. What's your final piece of advice for someone trying to grow a business and, struggling? Yeah. So, if you're struggling, you have to remember, one of the key things that was said to me a long time ago is that, the work always has to come, before the belief. Like, no one is going to believe in you or pat you on the back. So you got to be willing to do that to yourself for a period of time with the belief that, that better times are coming. Like, you don't know when that last hurdle is going to be before you, break through and make a difference. So just keep going and don't look for anyone else's appraisal. Don't let people project their fears on you. The people who tell you it can't be done or it shouldn't be done is usually them projecting their own thoughts on you. Just keep going. And that's really the only way that you're going to build anything of any substance. Just believe in it and just put in the work. Beautiful. Well said, guys. Take action. You have to put the work in. The more you work, the evidence will come. Your belief will increase. Don't let other people's fears, get in the way. Don't let their limiting beliefs factor into you doing something that you can do. And Ryan, thank you so much for being a guest on the podcast. Thanks, Leo. Appreciate it.
Are you looking for more seven-figure secrets, content, or even how you can launch your own recession-proof business? Then check out sevenfigures.com. That's the digit 7, FIGURES.com, where we share more videos, stories, strategies, funding solutions, entrepreneurial education, and even the secret business type that's recession-proof. Thank you for listening, and if you're finding value in our podcast, please give us a 5-star and invite others to join the club.